gaming is too toxic and it's your fault. Well, that's probably accurate.
If you've been in an online community of gaming at any capacity, then I'm sure you're very familiar with the term toxic communities.
Oh yeah.
It's been a very hot topic recently, especially as gaming evolves so much beyond simply sitting down and playing a game. Video games are no longer just a hobby or a pastime, they're much more than that. And regardless of if you think that's a good or a bad thing, the reality is that as gaming grows bigger and bigger, it's going to become much more observed and regulated by the people at the top.
That's definitely true. I mean, you see, obviously, and this is what happens, is that you get people that aren't really gamers that get into gaming, and then they get mad that people play games like gamers. I feel like in most cases, it's a matter of playing with people that have the same mindset that you do. So, like, for example, like, you know, it's definitely an L, like, even for me, for the Old War raid, right? It's not like it's people's fault for doing the mechanics wrong, sure, but it's also my fault for trying to expect a bunch of casual players to play the game the way that I want them to. You see kind of what I'm saying? Is like, yeah, it's their fault because they're just like, you know, like people went above and beyond to be bad, but at the same time, you can't just expect people to play at your really, really high level. You know, like I did Old War 10 years ago. I know everything about it. So big surprise, people that come in don't know the same things that we do. And, you know, you get into a group like that and fuck, that's the way things go.
Primary target right now is online chat. Now, I've been seeing a ton of articles recently talking about toxicity, and I figured there's so much going on that I have to make a video about this. And
I feel like most problems that people have with toxicity would be immediately solved by putting the person on ignore, and these game companies having a better and more comprehensive ignore system. Like, for example, like if somebody is talking shit to me or whatever, I just immediately put them on ignore. I don't even read it, and that's it. But you know, there's other games where, like, if you do that, then they make another character, or then they make another account, or something like that. And that's really what the issue is.
Example that when I saw really blew me away. But first, let's talk about the overview of what exactly this toxicity is.
Okay.
Now, I know there's a large contingent of people out there that don't believe in toxicity, and to an extent, I understand. For my entire...
I don't think there's anything that is innate to gaming that's toxic. I think the reason why people are toxic is that you have an anonymous environment and it's also competitive. Because like you have anonymous environments that are not competitive and like Reddit, etc. And like Reddit can be toxic. And you also have competitive environments, you know, sports and stuff like that can be toxic, but it's not as toxic as gaming. Like any time that you watch like any pickup basketball game, you know, sometimes people, not every time, but like lots of people are talking shit to each other, right? Like nothing serious, but you know, they're goading each other and shit like that. So you put those two things together, and so there's no accountability because it's anonymous, and then you also have, you know, it's competitive environment, and you're gonna have people that get really mad.
Childhood, the internet was kind of like the Wild West, and I grew up in that time where if I opened my mouth in a video game, I was going to be called some of the most obscene slurs you can ever imagine. I grew up as a kid playing in the Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops lobbies on Xbox Live, so I've heard everything in the book. I've been called everything in the book. I understood that playing Call of Duty on Xbox Live meant that I was going to run into those things. For example, when I got Halo Reach after that game came out, my Xbox was set up in the family living room, and we had just gotten the Xbox Connect for Christmas. Now, some of y'all might know where I'm going with this, but if you've ever played on Xbox Live with a Connect hooked up, everyone in the game can hear every sound that you make, and the in-game chat will go through the outside speakers. So when I booted up Halo Reach for the first time, they could hear my whole family talking in the background, and so that was a golden opportunity for the people in the game to start cussing out my entire family. So I learned real quick.
Well, hey, yo, fuck you, Grandma. Hey, you suck. You dumb bitch. It's like, what? Yeah, shut up, Mom. Your stupid ass kid can't shoot the sniper. I mean, you gotta admit, like, that shit's kind of funny.
exactly how toxic online communities can be. And so going forward, I also knew to expect that. It was almost part of the experience. As a collective, everybody kinda knew that when the mics got turned on, people were gonna be wilding out. And I say all that to illustrate that I see both sides here. That it can be—
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's like, this is not just something like, obviously it happens to girls, and you know, like that's the easiest thing to tell, is like if it's a girl or a dude. But there's also, like, if it's, for example, like a guy that has like a Middle Eastern accent, everybody's going to be saying shit about that. If it's a guy that has like a Southern accent, everybody's going to be saying shit about that. If it's a guy that sounds black, people are going to say stuff about that. Like, basically anything, if you sound old, they're going to fucking call you an old man. If you sound young, they're going to call you a stupid little kid. Anything that people can use to fuck with you, they're going to do it. That's just how the internet is. It's always been like that.
Harmful, but also just going to happen regardless. But the atmosphere around these communities has changed. The discussion now is that, is it time to shut this down? Is it time to not let online communities just be a free range like the Wild West anymore? Which brings us to this article. Activision teams up with Caltech to develop AI system to combat toxic behavior in Call of Duty. Now Activision—
Which I'm not necessarily against that if it's like people that are throwing games. Which is like a huge problem with some games, is like people that play, you know, like they're super toxic. They throw the game in like League or something like that. Like League games are like 40 minutes, right? So if you have somebody who wants to ruin that game, you just destroyed the better part of a person's hour. So like making sure that you have systems that prevent people from just being toxic. I think it's 100% fucking toxic to throw games, like super like in BGs. I feel like if I see somebody in a BG and they don't have like a helmet on because they think it's funny, I wish I could report them and get them suspended. And I genuinely, I'm not kidding, I think I absolutely should be able to do that. That person knows what they're doing. They are queuing up into a group environment that is competitive and intentionally handicapping themselves beyond what is average or beyond what is normal just to make people mad. Fuck that. No reason to let people do that. It just makes the game worse. Because what happens is that whenever that happens, and it's okay, and I did this all the time, by the way, but I would have never done it if I knew I'd get in trouble. So like, I don't want to hear somebody saying, oh, but you did this. Yeah, I know, it was bad. It was bad whenever I did it. It's bad whenever people do it now. It's still bad. But it is funny though, right? Like, let's admit that, like, if you've trolled people, like we used to have, like in Strand of the Ancients, we had something called Ocean Strat, which is whenever we would come in from the ships, we would get in the tanks and then we would ride them out into the ocean. And that was the strat. Ocean Strat. And then we just throw the game. It's fucking hilarious. Like, even 10 years later, I still think that shit's hilarious. So it would just ruin the game. There's nothing people could do. Bloodlust before the match, yeah. yeah. But like, and that is like a really, like the other one. As soon as somebody gets out of Alterac Valley, they bloodlust the moment that the gates open. Like, it's funny, but it's also really stupid. And I do think that, in general, if you have somebody that's doing that all the time, and then every lobby has somebody in there doing that, like, remember back, for example, back at, like, in, like, the Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch, where people kept sharing the Mother's Milk quest from Lower Blackrock Spire in every single BG? Yeah. And then it was funny for a while, but then every single BG had like 10, you know, level 73 or, you know, level 68 at that time, I guess, Death Knights sharing Mother's Milk. It just wasn't funny anymore. It was annoying. And so Blizzard just fucking suspended people for it, and that was it. So it's like, there is a point where toxicity is genuinely bad, because it just ruins the experience for other people. But I think that the big difference is that, like, communicating with somebody on a verbal level, giving someone the autonomy to mute that person, block that person, and also report them if they're being abusive, of course. But to effectively to delete that person, I think that's enough. I don't think it needs to really go that much farther than that unless the person is being like super abusive or something like that. Because I also don't think like why side with somebody who is obviously malicious. I think that the moment that you start siding with people that are malicious is the moment that you lose. But I guess the point that I'm getting at is that I think toxicity, the focus should be toxicity in gameplay rather than toxicity in communication.
Trying to crack down on the toxicity in Call of Duty isn't exactly anything new. Call of Duty specifically has gained some insane notoriety over just how toxic their communities are. I'm sure we've all heard that saying now, you would not have survived a Modern Warfare 2 search and destroy lobby, which is kind of thrown around as an insult to people who are quote-unquote soft and are trying to combat this. But since Call of Duty is the primary part of Activision's brand, I'm sure that's not a look they want to have. So let's get into the article. Activision Blizzard is collaborating with researchers to develop AI against online abuse. The effort will be a 2-year project which aims to detect harmful user behavior online. Joining the gaming firm is Senior Director of AI Research at NVIDIA.
I mean, they are soft. No, I think there's a lot of people that just don't want to. You have to look at it from, you know, again, a 9 to 5 Andy's perspective. Does somebody want to log on to relax after a long day that is stressful at work and be called the N-word by a 15-year-old for 3 hours? No. No, they don't. And it's just like, there's a certain point where it's too much. I'm not saying there should be no, like everybody should get banned for saying anything. No. But like, there is a line where it is, you're not soft for not wanting to deal with a kid who obviously should be on like 3 different types of medication, and they're on the medication they're instead of any medication, they're on fucking Red Bull, Mountain Dew, and Monster Energy. You don't want to deal with that. Sucks.
NVIDIA and BRCN Professor Anima Anandkumar and Professor of Political and Computational Social Science Michael Alvarez. We want to know how players interact. What kind of language do they use? What kind of biases do they have? What should we be looking for? That requires domain expertise, Anandkumar said. Now, I do find it kind of
I think like really an example of this is like the last game of Heroes of the Storm that I ever played. I had a guy that kept trying to run and solo the Nexus on the other person's team. And when I called him out for it, I said, come help us with team fight. He called me the N-word like 20 times, and then we lost the game. And after we finished the game, I asked myself, what am I doing with my life? Why am I deleting hours of my life, investing my time in this? What's the point? And I just stopped playing.
Strange that they're asking what to be looking for. I mean, I don't exactly think it's any kind of secret of what goes on in Call of Duty lobbies. People just say crazy stuff to say crazy stuff.
Yeah,
now, as for biases, there definitely is a stigma that goes on against female players. There's countless videos out there of girls getting on the mic and then instantly getting met with some of the worst language you can ever imagine. But then that does raise the question, though, of are those things—
That's definitely true. Like, by the way, like, I know there are some guys that want to act like it's not true because they don't do that. Most people don't do that. But there's definitely a subset of unironic incel gamers that do this. I've seen it too often, and if you don't think it happens a lot, if you play WoW, if you play any other MMO, try to find 5 females in a row that haven't been harassed by a guy. I'm pretty sure you probably won't even get past 2. Or if you play WoW, you won't get past 1.
Things that people really feel, or is that more of just a meme of the culture? Yeah. Because it says that when they're going to be looking for biases, I'm not exactly sure that's something that's going to be rooted in the psychology of the player, more so than it is a product of memes. But let's go ahead and keep reading. Additionally, Activision Blizzard announced what actions it's taking to create safer online experiences. The Call of Duty maker attributed the announcement to the Anti-Defamation League's newest report. Since the survey's release, the firm says that it's been in talks with the ADL on how it's combating player abuse. The game—
I wouldn't take the ADL seriously at all. I don't know what gives them the authority to talk about this. Aren't these the same people that said that Pepe the Frog was racist? Like, these people are just morons. Nobody should take them seriously at all.
Gaming Giant also shared how it's protecting players online. Some of the efforts are listed below. A code of conduct for Call of Duty, an improved in-game reporting system, a warning system.
Actually, by the way, I really dislike these people that try to take their own personal agendas and then turn them into, like, actual problems, like the OK symbol and the Pepe the Frog. Because what they do is that they draw such a ridiculous conclusion that it makes the problem seem like it's also ridiculous. So what they're doing is they're taking it to such an extreme that people are now trained to not even take the problem seriously at all, because these people are effectively lighting themselves on fire. Pepe is objectively anti-Semitic. I don't... No, Pepe the Frog is not objectively anti-Semitic. Just no, that's not true. It doesn't matter if you say it. Like, what do you think the probability of people, how many people who use Pepe the Frog actually even give a fuck about that one way or another? I would say 1 or 5%. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody's thinking about that.
System for players who exhibit disruptive behavior, and a mandatory social contract for users who play World of Warcraft. Now, I have a few things.
The social contract for a while, it solved a lot.
I want to say about that. My first thought when reading that was that, is this really abuse? When you're in an online game, everybody that you're talking to is completely anonymous, unless you're in a party, and they don't know who you are. You already have the tools of the mute button and the ability to block other players. So at what point is that the responsibility of the player to clean up the things that they're hearing? You already have the tools.
I think that's definitely true. In general, my line for being toxic in a video game is whenever you insult the person for something that is outside of the game. So, like, I don't think it's really toxic to say that somebody's dog shit ass garbage at a game if you're playing a competitive game. But if you say that they're, you know, like a stupid bitch because it's a girl, or you use some, like, racial thing or something like that, now you're not talking about the game anymore. It's not about the game. It's about them as a person.
To get that quote-unquote abuse out of your ears. So I'm not exactly sure how to answer that.
Yeah,
when it comes to the tools they've already implemented, let's talk about this code of conduct for Call of Duty. Number 1, treat everyone with respect. We do not tolerate bullying or harassment, including derogatory comments based on race, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, age, culture, faith, mental or physical abilities, or country of origin. Communication with others, whether using text or voice chat, must be free of offense or harmful language. Let me get the elephant out of the room real quick. This is a very utopian rule, because everybody's so touchy now, you have no idea what's going to be offensive to somebody or not. It is quite...
I do think that's true, is that people can get offended by stupid shit that's actually not offensive, because that's how they get attention and have power in the world, is by being unhappy about something, and then other people that are foolish think that now, you know, like, oh, I want to help this person and make them happy. Big mistake. They never want to be happy, because that's how they have power, is by not being happy. So they'll never relinquish their power. They'll always be unhappy. Anyway, the point I'm making with that is, like, it's definitely a problem, but I think at a certain point, like, if you make all of that stuff against the rules, the truth is that I don't know a single place where a bunch of young guys get together and that shit doesn't happen. I'll be honest. I don't know a single place. If it's like at school, it happened at school. If it's sports, it's happening at sports. It's fucking everywhere. So it's like, how do you really solve this problem whenever it's in every other place? Small dick rules? Yeah. Dumbest shit ever. Boys will be boys? Well, I think, like, if nobody else has solved this problem, it is unrealistic to expect Activision to solve the problem. Does that make sense?
literally impossible to know. So if you make a joke that everybody in your lobby finds funny except one person, they have the ability to get you banned for breaking code of conduct, even if what you said wasn't meant to be offensive. So yeah, this sounds nice, but it's impossible to enforce. And the second compete with integrity is basically—
I think also, like, just because somebody— it's like, again, like, it's always weird because you're talking about things from two different directions all the time. I think in order to, like, really give this a fair take, is that there are a lot of people that pretend like they're not trying to be offensive, but they are. And the intellectual dishonesty of it, they will never give it up. It's so annoying. So I'm not going to go and say, like, oh, well, he wasn't trying to be offensive. Yes, you were.
Saying don't cheat or use exploits. But at that point, how can you blame the player if your game is broken and they have an exploit to actually exploit? Now, if they're hacking or cheating, yeah, definitely they need to be banned. And the final one, stay vigilant to promote an enjoyable gameplay experience. Utilize in-game tools to report any incidents or inappropriate behaviors you encounter. Now,
one thing that I find frustrating is that you have these video games that have, like, consistent toxic behaviors from different players, like, you know, throwing a game, like blowing up their teammates, stuff like that. And it's like these companies fixate on voice chat rules because they think it can win them points in the virtue signal, like, social awareness space, because they don't actually care about solving any of these problems, including those problems. They just want to use this issue and their pursuit of solving it as a way to make themselves look good. So it's very frustrating whenever you see them making a bunch of rules for, like, oh, well, you can't say X, Y, and Z, but people still do toxic shit in-game. Like, toxic game behaviors. Like, ruining the fun... Like, turn off voice chat, that problem is gone. The only way to solve the other one is turn off the game. So it's like a... it's almost like a... Like it's a misplaced priorities.
I can attest that I have played a lot of Modern Warfare 2 since this code of conduct went live, and trust me, it did absolutely nothing. Call of Duty lobbies are still Call of Duty lobbies. People just choose to not obey the code of conduct. And I'm gonna be honest, I kinda like it. It's fun to talk crap in a competitive Call of Duty game, and sometimes I'm on the receiving end of that. If some dude says I sound like a 40-year-old dad with 6 kids and accuses me of using a voice changer, it really doesn't bother me that much. The game is rated M to begin with, and I think at that point, if you can't handle a little bit of insult, maybe just mute the person. But I also understand that not everybody's like me. And I
think also, like, for example, there are people that go out of their way to just be as obnoxious as possible. How do I know that? Well, it's because I used to be one of them. If I worked at Xbox, I would have banned me from Xbox Live. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, how do I know that? Because what would I do? I would literally just blow into the mic. I would just scream into the mic just because I thought it was funny to make people mad. And it's like, at that point, I mean, come on. Like, what is this, you know? A different time period? Well, I was 14, you know, or 15. And so it makes sense. It's just like, I think if a person gets reported and it's like every single lobby that this person gets into, everybody else, even on their own team, is reporting them, maybe you might want to do something about that, because this is clearly just a bad actor. This isn't a bad joke. It's not a, you know, some butthurt, you know, pussy boy who got mad at a joke. It's just an asshole.
This new AI that may not even be an option. In no uncertain terms, disruptive behavior online is an unacceptable problem that transcends any single industry. No person should be meant to feel unwelcome, unsafe, or targeted when they're online, especially because of who they are, what they believe, or their background.
I am not a fan of people saying that they're made to feel unsafe because somebody called them a name. I think it devalues actual threats on the internet. Please stop this. You're not unsafe because somebody was mean to you in voice chat.
So I'm gonna be honest here. I agree that people should be able to play a game without getting bullied. But does that transcend everybody else's right to talk online in a competitive manner? Obviously they shouldn't be out here saying slurs every other word. But like I said earlier, even if they're not, they have no idea what's offensive to one person and not to another. It kind of reminds me of the conversation around invasions in Elden Ring, where people were quite literally attributing a feature of the game as an equivalent to assault. The ability—
Gamers try to understand consent challenge impossible. I just want to play co-op with my partner without getting annoyed by some loser using hacks 50% of the time and causing connection issues the other 50%. Which it's like, and you can understand that. I do think that theoretically, you should be able to play co-op in Elden Ring without getting invaded. I don't see any value in having people get invaded without them being able to control for it. Yeah, there's no, there you can, there's a mod. Yeah, but like the moment that you say that there's a mod to solve a problem, then it's not, that's not real.
The ability to access competitive multiplayer in the game was seen as toxic by a very large portion of the community. There was also that League of Legends player who had his tournament win revoked and his entire team banned from competing again.
This was pathetic.
After jokingly teabagging his teammates.
This is just so fucking pathetic. Like, what kind of fucking Karens run a tournament where teabagging is against the rules? Holy shit.
An action that used to be seen as a harmless joke is now considered a form of sexual harassment.
It's, to be fair, it's really not, okay? And this did happen, but I remember whenever this happened, and literally 99% of all of the discourse surrounding this was that the people that made that decision were fucking ridiculous. Anybody who thinks that this is a problem is fucking ridiculous. Anybody who's equating this to sexual harassment is spending way too much time on the internet and is devaluing sexual harassment and is just a stupid asshole. Like, nobody actually thought this except for a handful of the most mentally deranged on Twitter.
I just have to ask, where is the line here? What other game companies are going to be following suit like Activision, where AI are going to be dictating what is and isn't offensive, and what does or does not deserve a ban? It's honestly a pretty scary thought to think about, because all of the blame is being put on your average player, when they're not even going to know what the parameters of a ban are.
I think that, like, again, whenever people say AI, what they really mean, in most cases, I think, is a, like, if-then, like, flowchart that is created to evaluate behavior. So, like, for example, if you report somebody and then it takes that text message and then it puts that text message through a chat parser, and then the chat parser looks for certain words, and if this word, then suspension. If not this word, then no suspension. So we're not really talking about some fucking Skynet thing. What we're talking about is just like pre-programmed algorithms to determine if something is bad or not. And the only reason they really do that is to save money on hiring more people. That's not exactly AI. It's kind of the opposite of AI. I understand that. But most people use AI in that way. Most things that people call AI are not really AI.
Regardless of the thought of what is or isn't offensive, I don't think this is a good thing for the future of online gaming. This utopia that we see in the future where nobody is offensive in an online game and nobody performs any actions that makes another person feel uncomfortable is just never going to happen.
No,
so when these
not.
AI systems take over completely, which is a realistic possibility, what's going to stop them from banning everyone who's even slightly competitive? Hopefully that's not a reality we ever have to face. But it does make me curious to hear your guys' thoughts. How far do you think this is going to go? And do you think a future is possible where people are no longer offensive in online communities? Let me know your thoughts down.
Yeah, you can easily make it to where nobody's offensive. Take out the voice chat. Problem solved. There it is. Done.
The comments below. But aside from that, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here. And I'll catch you in the next one.
Yeah, I think this has been an issue with gaming for kind of a while, and I do think that you have to come at this from two different directions. Because, like, for example, like, I don't want to see somebody getting banned from a video game because they call somebody a dick sucker. Or just they say somebody's garbage at the game. But if somebody is calling you garbage at the game and you put them on ignore, and then they make another account and then they keep calling you garbage at the game, I think they should get banned for that. Not even a question. Because they're circumventing the system, they are just going above and beyond, they're being obnoxious and psychotic, and at a certain point, why does everybody else have to endure a handful of mentally deranged, emotionally stunted man-children that can't control their behavior? So, like, if you go into a lobby and it's like this person, like, you know, 97% of the time that they go into a lobby, at least 3 people mute them. Maybe this person is actually just being toxic. This isn't a competitive person. This is just an asshole. So, like, it's really hard to look at that perspective, and then also to look at the perspective of, like, you should let people say what they want to say, and just because somebody gets butthurt about a joke or something like that in a lobby, who cares? So it's very hard to know where that line is. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on banning people based on historical chat? I don't want them to go back and ban somebody for something that they said in a video game in 2010. That's ridiculous. Like, nobody thinks that's good. That's just, only people that think that's good are weirdos. Let's see here. I'll read a couple of these. And devs enable systems which promote toxicity, and I'm okay with it. Yeah, they do. Where's the year limit? I don't know about a year limit. I think it just depends on who it is. It's not something I'd really worry about too much. Let me see here. What is this? Unrealistic skill-based matchmaking is the root of the problem. No, it's not. It's people getting mad. That's all there is to it. People should get banned. Oh, fuck, dude, bro, like, my chat is so messed up. Let me refresh it. I don't know why this happens sometimes. Give me 1 minute. Toxicity is a human problem and it can't be solved by AI. Yeah, but it can be made. You can reduce it by AI, for sure. Everyone said something they regret in their past. Yeah, I mean, I don't, of course. Imagine a system that detects players who get muted a lot or voted for bad behavior to get a manual review. Exactly, and that's kind of like what I'm saying is, like, so if you're getting reported every game, you're getting muted by half your own team every game, and this has been going on for a week. Like, this person has probably ruined 100 people's experience in the game. Is it their right to play the video game when it is at the expense of seemingly every other person they interact with? I think the answer to that is no. Fuck that. Absolutely fucking not. So, but there is a line where it's like, just because somebody does something wrong once, I don't think they should just get perma'd unless it's like a real-life threat or something like that. How do you feel about China making TikTok algorithm less toxic and more educational? I have no idea if that's going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. It's basically the community policing itself. Yeah. Final Fantasy is the best anti-toxicity policy in game. Yeah, sure. I think the use of systems like that is more efficient as a deterrent rather than resolution. More people will be mindful, knowing there's a chance they could get banned via automation, and then the automation is actually banning. Either way, it helps. Yeah. People have already found ways to manipulate the rules for years. Remember the no CD hacks? How about EXE trainers? Yeah, but, like, I think that just because somebody can find a workaround doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to create a solution that affects 80% of the player base. Like, yes, you're always going to have a group of people that are having a workaround, but that doesn't mean that it's, you know, it's not going to make a difference. What's this here? Let me see here. Soft-ass generation. I feel like every generation has a bunch of soft, pussy-ass babies. There's nothing unique or new about Zoomers and being pussies. Bro, like, people have been pussies about stupid shit forever. Like, there's nothing unique about this. The only difference is that right now, because of the internet, it gets more awareness. This would have been happening in 1985, too. It would have just been happening to a different person for a different reason, maybe. You know, the biggest pussies at my factory are 60 plus. Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of people. People are way more soy today. I don't think that's entirely true. I feel like a lot of people are uptight. They've always been uptight, and they're just uptight about different stuff. Yeah, I think that it's true to an extent, but not really. It means the TikTok algorithm is educational in China, not in the West. I have no idea. I don't use TikTok. Remember back in the day, someone would get salty at you and you just hit them with the LOL and it just makes them more angry. Zero effort, and you just egg on the dickheads and ruin their day. Yeah, but like some people don't want to deal with that. And I don't think that somebody should be expected to deal with a person. Like, again, if you're getting muted every fucking game, people are blocking you every game, you're getting reported every game, this goes on for a week, yeah, I think you should get suspended for that. Because 9 times out of 10, bro, if you are the common denominator, you are probably also the problem. And you're not doing anybody any favors by siding with a malicious person over 100 people that are just trying to enjoy the game. For sure. Let's see if I can just look at a couple more. Then I want to move on and look at... I was thinking about maybe watching this. Why isn't gaming fun anymore? It's you guys feel like that's true? That gaming isn't as fun as it used to be? Well, soy people getting power now, that's the difference. Trying to censor everything and everyone against their agenda. Lord Genji, you are probably either naive, young, or you have a very bad memory. Who else remembers us not being able to bring Pokemon cards to school because they were satanic and they were pocket monsters? Who remembers that? You guys remember that? Yep. Okay. Back in the glory days of the 90s, just because people have a different cross to nail themselves up at doesn't mean that it's the first time it's ever happened. That was real? Yes, it was at my fucking school, and Harry Potter was another one. Dungeons and Dragons. Video games were one of them. I bet, I guarantee you, I could ask like my cousin, he's like 10 years older than me, and like obviously my mom would buy him fucking Atari and shit like that too. He taught me how to play video games. And so guess what? Well, he fucking probably had people saying the same thing to him. Yeah, banned Game Boys in school. There you go. Only in America. Yeah, there's been stuff like this all the time. It's nothing new, man. It's only because of where you live. Here we didn't get that stuff banned in school. Yeah, but like, what are the odds that there was nothing stupid that happened? Like, for example, I remember, I think it was like a rap thing where like they didn't want people like listening to certain kinds of music at school because like the music was really violent. I'm trying to remember like what some of that stuff was. Yeah. Metal and rap, was it Eminem maybe? I think Marilyn Manson was one of them in middle school. It's like you weren't able to wear t-shirts with certain artists on them. It was crazy. So, and like now you can wear a t-shirt with any of those guys on them. It's fine. But you can't do something else. All I'm saying is that it's very easy to say that it's a soft-ass generation full of pussies, and I agree. But the last generation was also soft and full of pussies too. It's just a different kind of pussy. That's it. It's the only point I'm trying to make. It was a good video. I'm going to link you guys this video too before I go on that. Yeah, let's see here. Not just USA. We had similar rules here in England. Oh, yeah. It's really hard for me to say what it's like in other countries. I'm just really talking about how it's like here and what it was like and, you know, people that I've talked to and what their experiences were. Yeah, I've watched a lot of his videos and just in general, I like his Elden Ring and, you know, other types of From Software coverage. Almost got expelled from school from wearing Twisted Sister t-shirt back in the mid-'80s. Man, people were so soft back then, huh? I agree.